As you may know from experience, changing an 8-inch garden tractor tire can be quite difficult. First of all, it doesn't fit on your normal bead breakers for cars. And second of all, it's so small and it's so rugged. To make matters worse, I had to order a 4-ply garden tractor tire. Isn't that crazy? The last one I put on the other side of the tractor was 2-ply, and that wasn't so bad. This 4-ply is much harder to deal with, and hence this video. Getting the old tire off isn't too bad. You can break the bead usually just by standing on it. And once you break the bead, you can stick your reciprocating saw down in there and saw the bead off on the tire, as you can see right here. This tire was about 30 years old, and the older rubber gets, the harder it gets. So it's very difficult to get an old tire off without cutting the bead. Usually one cut on one side is enough. This tire was so tough I had to cut 2 sides on the bead to just pull the wheel out. This picture shows the tire after it's fully mounted on the old rim. The point I want to make here is how indented the center of this tire tread is. That's what made it about 1.5 inch gap from sealing on the rim. This is a result of packing them tight so they all get a lot more tires in one shipping container, and we have to struggle with the final outcome. Notice the bolt sticking up right here. That's a 6-inch, 1/4 inch bolt I passed through the workbench to hold the tire steady. I simply measured the distance between these 2 bolts, and then I went over to the table and I drilled 2 holes in the table at the same distance. This allowed me to use 2 1/4 inch bolts to secure the wheel to the table. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of putting the back side of the tire over the front edge of the wheel. But it's simply a matter of tilting the tire at 45 degrees with the wheel on the floor. Put the weight of your knees on the tire on both sides, and then take a screwdriver and pry around till the back side of the tire falls over the wheel. Getting the front of the tire over the front of the wheel is much more difficult because now you can't tilt the tire with respect to the wheel. So everything is very difficult at this point. On the back side of this picture, you can see where I use 3 clamps to clamp the tire width down. The bead has to be lower than the rim on the wheel before you can pry the rest of the bead around the wheel. So that's what the 3 clamps do. The vice grips keeps the tire from moving on you while you're trying to rotate the bead around the wheel. The orange screwdriver is used to pull the clamped bead underneath the ridge on the wheel so that you can walk it around the wheel, walk the bead around the wheel with the red screwdriver. And that combination worked well for me. As you complete the process of walking this bead around the edge of the wheel, you always want to insert the red screwdriver at this location, then slide it over to this location to make it easier to pry over that edge of the wheel. At this point, you can't get your screwdriver underneath the tire to slip it behind the wheel. So all you do is hit the edge of the bead where it crosses the wheel, hit that edge with a hammer a few times, and it'll pop right over. And that completes the mounting of the tire on the wheel. Here's a short video clip, which was handheld, not that accurate. Didn't have time to go run around getting a tripod. But anyway, it shows the struggle of trying to get this last part of this bead over the wheel. It's important those clamps hold the other side of the wheel down below that rim. That makes this much easier, but it's still a struggle. So that's what's demonstrated here in this video. So now I unbolted the wheel from the table, and now I had to deal with getting this big gap bead fixed. There's a big gap on the other side too. It's almost 1.5 inch total gap between the 2 sides, which is ridiculous. And it all has to do with the way it was packed for shipping. I tried the strap down the middle of the tire. That didn't work. I tried the 15-gallon bucket where you set it on a 15-gallon bucket, and then the pressure going into the tire will seal against the bucket and possibly push out the center of the tread. Well, that didn't work either. So I finally ended up doing it my way. My way consisted of using 2 ratchet straps, one on each edge of the tire. By clamping the edges of the tire, it actually expanded the tire. It brought the middle up a little bit and made the tire wider, and that was enough so I could catch a seal by using the hose directly on the valve stem without an inflator tool. Of course, during this process, I sprayed Windex on both beads on both sides of the tire to ensure a good seal. With the straps on, don't exceed a couple of pounds of pressure because it makes it too hard to release the straps later. Just put a little pressure, and if you get too much, just let some of it out so you can release the straps. And once these straps did their thing, I simply took the straps off and brought the tire up to its normal pressure. So there you have it. This is how I achieved the nearly impossible task of getting this 4-ply tire on this little stinking wheel. The reason I changed the tire is because I found that the Chinese inner tubes are worthless. They're too thin. They leak all the time. So I just have to change the tire. That way it doesn't leak once I install it.